Woo! We are live! Woohoo!
Yay!
Hi everyone! Welcome to our event, which is titled "Bring on the Banter: Candid Conversations about the Body Image Experiences of Female Athletes in Hong Kong." And just as a brief introduction, the goal of this panel is to start a much needed conversation about the mental health impacts of unrealistic body image standards amongst female athletes in Hong Kong. So I'm just going to pass it over to Sis, my co-host, who will be sharing a little bit about the organization that we are collaborating with, Wise Hong Kong. Go for it, Sis.
Thanks, Steph. Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here, and thank you to you and to Body Banter for sort of getting this going. So yeah, my name's Sissy, or Sis, whatever. I'm from WISE, which is Women in Sports Empowered Hong Kong. And a little bit about us. We are an organization that champions women in sport, women and girls in sport in Hong Kong. We encourage our women and girls to participate in and stay playing sports by just promoting the benefits of it that stretch far beyond the physical. We want people to lead empowered and active and meaningful lives. And we do this by educating and by raising awareness of why sport matters for women and girls via different activities. And ultimately, we envision a Hong Kong where sports participation is a daily part of life. As important as work and family and friends for women and girls here in Hong Kong. So on behalf of WISE, I'm very, very happy to be here with you, Steph, and Body Banter.
And we're so excited to collaborate with you as well. It's been such a pleasure working to plan this event. And yeah, thanks for being here, Sis, and for all of the WISE staff for supporting our panel. It's great. And I'll just introduce Body Banter briefly. So Body Banter is an up-and-coming nonprofit organization that aims to connect and to empower young people to find their voices in conversations about body image and mental health. So how we achieve that mission and work towards that mission is that we support our student ambassadors, our terrific team of student ambassadors, in building resilience in the face of bogus societal standards of beauty, and just by giving talks at schools and also providing mentorship opportunities for our ambassadors to create projects in different mediums of expression, whether that be blog posts or vlogs or podcasts or starting on-campus discussion groups. So that's in a nutshell what we do. And I think, the collaboration between WISE and Body Banter is so amazing because we're just moving towards changing norms and creating positive change. So that's so exciting.
Yes,
woohoo! So first off, let's introduce our first panelist. Welcome, Steph Cuvelier. I'm so excited to welcome Steph Cuvelier. Open the curtains. And we're going to welcome Steph Cuvelier, who is a former Hong Kong representative of the Women's Rugby Sevens full-time scholarship program at the Hong Kong Sports Institute. And she has also previously represented Hong Kong in women's netball. She is also She's also the founder of Calibrate Studios, a gym in Hong Kong that aims to provide guidance, support, and education on the importance of exercise and nutrition to deliver therapeutic lifestyle changes for those who are seeking it. Welcome to our panel discussion, Steph.
Thanks, Steph. It's a very thorough introduction.
I love fellow Steph, so this is fantastic. And next up, I'm... Sorry?
I'm joking.
And next up, we're going to introduce Anna. Hi, Anna.
Hello.
Woohoo! And Anna is a high school student as well as a Hong Kong national rugby sevens player. So an incredible balance and juggling of acts. So we're proud and excited to have you here, Anna. Woohoo!
Thank you very much.
Yay!
Our third guest is Angel Wong. Angel is an artistic gymnastics athlete. She has represented Hong Kong at numerous major sporting competitions and actually became the first female gymnast to represent Hong Kong at the Olympic Games in London in 2012. So this is a big run-up for her. Is she coming in?
Woohoo! Let me
There's
just click
Angel.
her in. She is here.
Angel.
Hi guys. Thank you for that
Angel.
lovely intro.
Yay! And last but not least, we've got Ashley Martin as well. Ashley is an amateur MMA fighter who's achieved silver and bronze medals in Hong Kong competitions and at the Asian Open Games, and is also a blue belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and as well as this is a full-time wellness coach and personal trainer. So yay, Ashley!
Woohoo!
Hi guys. I love how many woohoos there have been so far today. This is the best group. This is the best group.
I could not agree more. And that's all of us now on stage, which is an exciting thing. Awesome. So I think we're ready to jump straight into our first question that I invite everyone to pop into if you feel so inclined. So the first question is, in your opinion, do you think that female athletes in your sport, in your particular sport, experience different degrees of appearance-based pressure compared to men involved in the same sport? And feel free to disagree with that, or to suggest that there is other evidence, or to agree with that. Yeah, so anyone can answer that first off.
Who's going to go first?
I'm going to say me. I'm going to say yes, I think I've experienced that in many different areas, but I say that the beauty of rugby is that actually body shape and body size, actually you aren't defined by that, because there's a different position on the field that can fit, every single shape and size. But I do think that from experience, I feel when you get more developed with muscles as well, often it can be considered manly. And I don't know why that is. You're trying to perform for your sport. And once you look a certain way, you're being judged by that. So I think that that's just one example of it. I will happily have someone else come in and join me on this conversation now, but I was opening the table there.
Right. Feel free to jump in, and even if we interrupt each other, it is completely fine.
Yeah, I feel like MMA is pretty similar. Like women, I think at a high level are sort of embraced for, I guess, their body type as a function. Like whether you're a wrestler or you're a striker, like your body type could be a reflection of that. And I feel like in that sense, like almost guys in a way, because guys aren't allowed to pick. Actually, I don't know what the rules are, but guys often fight topless, whereas girls, they can pick whether they wear a rash guard, a long sleeve or short sleeve, or a crop top. Whereas as far as I've seen, there's only like one heavyweight male fighter that wears a rash guard vest, and I'm not sure he wears it anymore. So in that sense, it's interesting to have it be the other way around, where guys kind of have to get their bodies out, and girls can pick.
That is interesting, and thanks for sharing that. Yeah, go Angel.
Yeah. So I think there's pressure for both, male and female gymnasts, but I think more so the female gymnasts. Well, you see, like, gymnastics is such a performance sport, and I think for females, you see that we do have to wear leotards, right? And you see the different, all the crystals on it and the hair and makeup. So all of that, including, your body shape, your body type, everything is like a whole package, because we do go on stage and we perform a certain routine for the judges to judge. So I think we do have more pressure to look a certain way. And I feel like the public perception of what like an ideal gymnast should be is pretty set on like the petite, skinny, lean girl. And not everyone is born with the same body type. And so I think for a lot of gymnasts, it's kind of like we're always trying to be a certain way or look a certain way because the coaches or the sport demands that. Yeah.
So it's almost part of the actual act of participating in the sport itself, like the appearance part
so
of
I think that's added pressure
for sure.
For us. Whereas for the guys, I would say there's a bigger flexibility in the body type that is accepted for gymnastics. Yeah.
Right. Thanks for sharing that perspective, Angel.
And is gymnastics also a weight sport? Sorry, just curious. Is gymnastics a weight division sport?
It isn't. No. You would think it is, right? Because
yeah,
it's so like strict on how we look or what we need to be small to carry our body weight to do the skills. But actually, it's not a weight sport. So you could say if you were able to do what you needed to do, you could be any weight or any body type. But it's just that the culture of the sport has a certain stereotype that it wants to maintain for the athletes to look good or be aesthetically pleasing when they do the skills. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Thanks for sharing. And Anna, could you share your perspectives on this question?
Yeah, absolutely. I guess I'm going to have a similar perspective to Steph on some of these things, but I definitely agree that I think I'm really lucky I'm in the rugby community that is super accepting of like all shapes and sizes, as you said. That's not to say that there isn't appearance-based pressure. I think that for female rugby players, we often struggle to balance the social expectations that are kind of just generally put on girls with the demands of athletics to be like strong and powerful. And so I think it's definitely not talked about much, especially because it's like predominantly, well, up until recently, it's been more of a kind of male sport. And because of like stereotypes, gender stereotypes of like wanting to be like macho and masculine, I feel like guys see it as like a sign of weakness, maybe talking about like how they might feel the need to meet certain like bodily expectations for rugby. But yeah, for girls, it's definitely an issue, I think.
Sure. Does anyone else have anything to add with regards to that question? Or
I think just what Anna mentioned there with the social expectation as well. Sometimes when you're playing a sport, you are in this world where everyone's on the same page and you will play it because you love it. And then once you step into the outside world, you forget that sometimes people see you from a very different light. And to have that expectation to still, I don't want to say be feminine, but at the same time, sometimes they outright do say that, like, that's not a feminine sport. Why are you playing that sport? And I know that for me, I'm quite stubborn, so I like to go against that and prove people wrong. So I will stick people say no, only because I'll always stick to what I believe in. And I don't think that we're defined by how we look. I think that we should always be doing things that we're happy doing and doing like the feel good things, But like you said there, the social expectation is probably something that we're going to be talking about a lot of in today's conversation. But yeah, thank you for mentioning that.
Awesome. Yeah, we'll talk a lot more about, social media and social expectations later on. So there's a lot more to come with regards to that. But yeah, I'm going to turn over to Steph, my fellow Steph, to ask a more specific question with regards to your experience as well. I know that you mentioned in your bio that you felt like you grew up being bigger than everyone else. And that was one particular experience that you had. And then you felt that you were not big enough when you entered the field of rugby. And I just was very curious to know whether you could kind of elaborate on this idea of like finding the right size and like that pressure and how that kind of affected your experience of your body.
Yeah, so this gets quite personal, but growing up, I think my dad is Belgian and my mum is Chinese. So I've got two very different body types right there. And I know that amongst like my sisters and I, we've all got similar, but also very different body types as well. So sometimes it's quite hard when it's almost like you expect a cookie cutter mold to be there and you're supposed to be the same as every other person. But that's not the case. And with my friends growing up, I'm, taller than a lot of them. My bones are bigger than them, but I'm by no means big. But compared to them, who a lot of my friends are a lot more smaller Asian girls, they're tiny compared to me. And I can, I'd eat them as a snack kind of thing. They're so small. But at the same time, I think not really knowing when you're a growing girl, you've got a concoction of hormones. But on top of that, you don't know what your body is going through while it's changing. And this starts from a young age. You don't really know what's happening. And no one does. There's no manual that tells you how to grow up and how to fit into your body. So when you're trying to fit in, that's one thing. So that's like your social life at school. But I'm lucky I was raised to be, sporty growing up. My dad, basically got us all playing sport from a young age. It didn't matter what it was just get involved. And I know he wasn't a fan when we went down the rugby path, but again, stubborn Steph over here. I followed in my sister's footsteps, but they didn't all continue on with it, and I chose to continue on with it. And I think a part of it was more to kind of prove people wrong. So maybe it wasn't for the right reasons at the start, but at the same time, it was tough because I felt big in school, but then once I started playing rugby, they're like, you're not big enough to be a certain role. And I must admit, I didn't really have as many problems when I was younger. So it wasn't until I actually entered the adult rugby scene that suddenly, I guess, taking it more seriously as well and understanding the different roles on the team, I went from being a winger, always an outside back, which is generally the ones who run a lot and are known to be a little bit leaner, to then going back into one day becoming a prop. And the prop is supposed to be the biggest, strongest one, or what it seemed to be. And I know in sevens it doesn't matter so much because everyone's running across the field. But I think that, I guess from the ages between probably 14 to, I want to say there's no real end date, but between 14 to 17 was probably the crucial times where there was a lot more of the body image issues as a young girl growing up. And in Hong Kong, I don't know if you guys know, but a lot of the time they kind of pick out the mixed girls to become models. And I think Ash, you might have that experience as well. And you kind of get like, you have these scouters who are out there. And I think I'm pretty traumatized with this experience. But it was just, at first it's like, oh my God, they see that I'm beautiful, and you have this external validation thinking that other people think, highly of you. But I think I remember at a time they did tell me I was too big. So I was like, okay, well, I'm not good enough for that. And then there's like the whole self-worth comes into it. And I think rugby was a sport that made you feel a lot more inclusive. So you went in, it didn't really matter, and you had like team sport around you. I think that was probably the healthiest thing for a growing girl. So I'm always trying to tell people, play sport, whatever it is, but play sport. And then there's like like one moment I remember I got pretty sick and I came back, and because I was sick, like this is number one, health, right? And I lost about like 5 kilos or something. This is, at 15, 16 years old. So I was down to like this tiny little frame, but I was being told by everyone, oh, you've lost so much weight, you look great. And then suddenly in my mind, I was like, oh, maybe I do look good. And then in your mind, you don't know what's happening, but then you believe what you're hearing. And I still remember this one company that then asked me to come back for a casting. I went back and they were like, whatever you did, keep it up. And I was like, but I mean, at the time, I didn't really know, right? So I was like, oh, I'm going to get the job. But really stabbed me deep down. And I think that was like the turning point to like kind of skewing you the wrong way. So then I tried to keep up that skinny persona whilst playing all my sport. And yeah, it was hard. And then after that, it went in like the opposite direction to not being big enough to play. And I was like, how do I struggle with finding the balance between the two? And so, it was pretty tough. And it took me a long time to get out of that. And I must admit, like up until probably the recent years, it took so long to finally come to terms of what healthy really means and how to actually come at peace with myself, but ultimately develop your self-confidence. But yeah, it's going to get too emotional if I can continue. So yeah.
Thanks for sharing that, Steph.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. I want to ask as well, Angel, on that, sort of following on from Steph there, talking about sort of growing up in childhood and these expectations. We mentioned there a little earlier, or you did, that gymnastics carries with it this sort of perfectionist culture, right? Of like every hair in place, your body looking right. And I think in recent times, athletes such as Simone Biles are calling this out now, are calling this out and stepping up and taking a stand to this. But how do you feel that your gymnastics training kind of put a pressure on you, similar to what Steph's talked about there, of this perfectionist standards in terms of body image?
Right. Yeah, definitely. Like I said earlier, you're always performing, like you're doing a performance for someone. So you want to look your best at all times. And I think that coupled with the fact that we're always, aiming to be perfect at everything, that puts a lot of pressure on, how we want to look, how we want to look, how our body wants to be a certain way. And I think, me being around a lot of teenage girls, because most of my teammates, they're teenage girls, they're very much influenced by social media influences, and there's a lot of negative energy that goes around. To you want to look a certain way, you want to be skinny, you want to have the best proportions, and in gymnastics, it sort of works, for that sport as well, because proportions and all that, they do play a part in the whole aesthetics of the sport, but it is a negative influence for all of us. And me being the older athlete in the group, I try to steer them away from that, and really focusing on what feels best for you. So there are times in my career where I try to scale down on how much I ate, my intake, and that led to not just like fat content reduction, but also muscle. I lost muscle, and I wasn't performing my best. And I think that was the point when I felt like it's not about the way you look, it's more about the way you feel, and how, at what weight or at what body content that you feel you perform your best. And I think that's very important, in terms of, I am built a certain way. I'm born that, like, with a certain body type. And I think now that I look back at my career, that has helped me to do the things that I can do. There was a time when I had pretty low self-esteem because I thought I was really small. I was too short. But then now I look back, I'm thankful that I'm smaller, because that has made me who I am, and has helped me to be able to do the things that I do in gymnastics. Yeah.
Awesome. It's interesting, isn't it, the line between sort of being fit and ready and good at the sport that you need to do, but not sort of taking it too far and letting it sort of flow into other realms of life, and letting that kind of perfectionist culture go over there. But yeah,
I think so. And now that I am sort of transitioning into being a coach, it's a lot about encouraging the athletes that I coach. And like you mentioned, Simone Biles, she has been, she's known to be the best gymnast that has ever existed. And, the skills she does is crazy, but she doesn't have that traditional, ballerina-esque type body type. But I love her for that, because she's showing the world that you don't need to have that certain body type, that the coaches sort of want to mold a lot of gymnasts into being that certain way. And and I think the world needs to see that we need to celebrate different body types, and different body types have their own uniqueness and aesthetics to them, and it's not just the ballerina type athletes that are winning the medals.
Yeah. And Angel, I just wanted to say, as a coach, you have so much you have such a powerful way to influence your athletes now, having experienced that in a very personal way.
Right,
you have so much more of a story to tell, and like a powerful way to influence the next generation of athletes in your same field. So I'm so glad that that's the case. Yeah. Thanks for sharing that. Yay.
Yeah,
Awesome. Now I'm going to turn it on over to Anna. And I know that you have two kind of identities of, being a student and also being a rugby player at the moment. And I was curious to know, whether you feel like the body image standards or expectations in these two realms of your life are different, and perhaps how, if there are any conflicts or, similarities and differences in those expectations, and how that influences the way you view your body.
Yeah, for sure. I think to start off with, I would say that society's ideal body type, which I think is similar to, I guess, the body standards you experience at school, are very different to the ideal physique for many sports. And so I think a lot of people do have that struggle and conflict between wanting, say, like a slim figure, like the ideal kind of model body, and well, in rugby's case, kind of a bigger build, more muscular, and toned. And so as Steph was saying earlier, I think you often feel kind of out of place, I think, as a female rugby player, and like not being able to kind of strike that balance between the two, because on one hand you aren't really going for that same physique that a lot of your peers are going for, but on the other you're also not really necessarily meeting rugby standards of physique. I think a lot of rugby players in Hong Kong especially, like Asians, myself, are a bit smaller in stature, and so like as hard as we try, like we may never reach the same physique as, say, the standard Canadian rugby player or Kiwi rugby player, like even if we trained every day for the rest of our lives. So I think it's definitely important to understand that when you're training, you're trying to, I know it sounds super cheesy, but like become the best version of yourself.
We love cheese.
Because because at the end of the day, everyone has different bone structure, like muscle structure, everything. So like we're never gonna all look the same. So there's no real point in trying to fight that, I guess.
Woo!
Love what you had to say about that, Anna. Thank you. For sure. And sounds like you found a place of like really celebrating what your body can do, and also just celebrating your body for what it is. And I think that's a really wonderful thing. Thank you, Anna.
And Ashley, Steph mentioned there a little bit about the modeling culture and that kind of world. And I know that you have played a part in that too. And I think it will forever be my favorite SCMP headline about modeling to MMA. Ashley Martin breaking bones and mental health barriers. Well, I just think it's brilliant.
They really hammed up the modeling part. I don't know how much they actually did.
I love it. But you did this transition from the sort of modeling world into MMA, which, you know, might be on either end of spectrums of activities, very, very different things. Can you tell us a little bit about how your perception of body image and your idea of body image changed in these two stages of your life?
Yeah, of course. So, I mean, Steph mentioned earlier that I guess they sort of reel you in because you're, you know, mixed or you're tall, but you have Asian features. And then once they've got you in, they're like, you know, your bone structure is all weird and, you know, you're just too wide and like, what's with your jawline? Stop that. And I guess I just, the jobs that I did get were the ones that, and I guess at the time when I was modeling, I wanted to be as skinny as I could possibly be, the healthiest that I could possibly do it at. And obviously, I don't think those two go hand in hand when you're reaching for like quite unachievable or unrealistic standards for yourself. So I was sort of like over exercising, under eating. But the times where I, like you said earlier, Steph, like the times where I got the most praise, or the times where I got jobs, were the times where I was like at my most famished or my most dehydrated. And I remember just like, I look back at pictures of myself, and one, I'm like, oh, I'm like, I look gray. And two, at the time, I just didn't think I looked anything like how I looked. I thought I was so much bigger. I thought I was so much wider. And there was nothing that I was doing that made me happy about what I looked like, even though I was getting all this reward or getting jobs at the end of the day, or like being invited to parties or whatever it was. Because I went the healthier route over exercising, under eating, I lost my period. Yay! And of course, then all the things start happening to your body that say that you're not doing the right things for you. I gained a load of weight quite rapidly, just some medical, hormonal issues, and obviously when you gain a load of weight as a model, you lose a load of jobs, you can't work, people don't want you places. Because you're just not sort of in that mold. So I guess a lot of my worth was tied to the way that I was expected to look. And having grown up being quite athletic, like I played hockey, I played football, played netball, I swam. Most of the time it was like, ooh, do you really want to do so much sports, Ashley? You know, you're gonna get a bit like this. So when I went through my own experience of, I guess, just having my body work against me, it took me a couple years to just get used to the weight. I gained about 20 odd kilos onto what I was walking around at the time. And then it was just a matter of like keeping going to the gym, or like finding things that made me feel better, or just getting out of the house, or like meeting up with friends and going for a run. But it was weird because even though I gained a load of weight, I was still active, but the weight wasn't really going anywhere. Then I just decided I'm going to join an MMA gym. I wanted to do Muay Thai. Just wanted to strike. You know, everyone's like, you lose loads of weight when you're doing kickboxing. So you're like, all right, I'm gonna hit some stuff. And it just sort of rolled. Pardon the pun, because I found jiu-jitsu, so it just sort of rolled into the next thing. I found jiu-jitsu, and in that they were like, very encouraging. Like people would say to me, "Oh, you're really strong," and I'm like, "That's because I'm 80 kilos at the time." So, but it's like the reward I got then was like, you're sort of made for this, or you're built for this, or like, good job. Like use what you look like. Use your strengths, which is your weight, which at the time was like just very interesting shift. And then it was still a hobby. Like I was hosting and I was working in events. But just slowly, surely, I just kept going back, and it was really like the community and the progression as well in the sport. Like you say, like inclusion, like it's very male dominated environment, something that I feel like I'm quite used to anyway, just being sporty. It just felt like home. And I feel like just that reassurance, you just keep coming back, you kind of forget what, or just sort of see less of the stuff you don't like and more of the stuff that you're sort of looking for.
Yeah. I think it's great when you find a community like that sort of welcomes you, and especially when you're not used to it from before, and quite an open one like that. And now jumping all the way ahead, you are a trainer, and Steph, you are too. You're both trainers. And I guess nowadays, right, as personal trainers, a huge amount of your work is generated and promoted through Instagram. And Instagram is a whole heavy topic of, what we're doing, why we put these silly tan filters on our face and stuff. But it's a crazy world that we all buy into, all of us. But as personal trainers now, and sort of given you both of your struggles there that you've gone through with body image growing up and sort of coming to realize what your body can do and what it should do, how do you balance kind of pressures of social media with sort of the need to attract clients and run a business and looking a certain way to be a personal trainer?
I'm going to start. I think that there's always going to be an underlying issue with that, and there's always going to be an underlying pressure that you should look a certain way, because at the end of the day, when you're in this industry as well, you're a walking business card. And I mean, I've heard it so many times, like, why would I want to go and train with someone who looks like that? Like, well, how do you know what they know? So for me, I think people will always, unfortunately, believe what they see. And like you said, like, social media is like the bane of my existence, and yet I'm on it all the time. And it's not that if I could disconnect, I would. If I would take everything off, if I didn't have a business, I don't think I would be on any of it. But at the same time, it's like fire. And I think I spoke to you about this, Sis, when we were on the podcast. It's like you can use it for good or you can use it to destroy. And I think there's just so much, like, there's so much bad stuff out there. The only thing we can do is try and actually put some goodness back into it. So rather than showcase, I was writing notes earlier and I was just reading off my notes. I was saying maybe it's time that we should try and showcase our knowledge, not necessarily your booty. There's so many, like how I filter through it is I just don't follow accounts that I don't want to see stuff of, because you can choose. And I just recently read the book. It's called No Filter, and it's about the Instagram story and how they actually began. And I would highly recommend that book because it has, it's just transformed into a platform that it wasn't initially designed to do. And unfortunately, that's what happens when you sell yourself to a bigger corporation. And I'm not saying any names here because I will, everyone's listening to everything. But
always listening.
I know they're all listening. They've heard everything. But it's all about teaching people about what health really is, and embracing everything that comes with it. And that really does mean talking about the mental piece, talking about how to find your inner peace. And for me, I do a lot of meditation, journaling, doing things that can better myself from within as opposed to from the outside. And I guess, for me, my main thing is I focus a lot more on the education as opposed to what it's supposed to look like. So I really cannot remember who said this, but it was the most powerful thing that I heard. And it was, your body is an instrument, not an ornament. And so it's what you can do with it and what it's capable of as opposed to how you wear it. And I think if we can slowly take, or at least, everyone does their little part to kind of shift people away from that. I'm glad that was powerful. I mean, it's so powerful as well. That's what stuck with me. But yeah, building your self-confidence from within and realizing that, I don't know if you guys have seen those, I'm not on TikTok, but so many of them went viral, and it's like 13-year-olds now versus 13-year-olds back in the day. And I know, Anna, you're a bit younger than us, but I die watching that stuff because we are the ones from before. Like, I don't know how 13-year-olds now look like 20-year-old models. It doesn't make sense to me. Like, we had like pants up to here and like, I don't know, hair that we thought looked cool. And you really look back and you like burn those photos forever. You can't, and it's a part of us and it's made us who we are. But I think it's like when you go back to that innocence of not having the filters through social media, like, you can really just understand who you are as well. And we kind of go through this struggle where you're influenced by your environment and everything you put around you. And, you can change up your home environment. You can change up who you hang out with. You can change up what you choose to do as well. We don't have to constantly fall into these so-called norms of the world that we live in. And Hong Kong is it's a unique place as well, but there are its downfalls to it as well, because it's so dense and everyone's social circles overlap, and there's a lot of pressure to socialize as well. And I am a homebody through and through, but I know that I need to make my effort to maintain my relationships as well. But at the same time, I can't keep up with, brunches on weekends every single weekend. I can't go out on the weekends because my lifestyle doesn't accommodate for that, but I'm okay with that because I choose for that. And I think that when it comes to the messages that that I aim to convey to my clients is I do talk about, I tend to ramble when I'm nervous. But yeah, I tend to talk a lot about more of the struggles that I've been through so I can try and, help them, because nobody comes in here just wanting to train. You then realize how personal the experience is, and they share so much of their inner world with you that you realize it goes way past the physical side. So any form of a coach, honestly, I feel those have been probably the most powerful influences in my life as well. So the only thing I can try and do is give that back to the people that I am helping, and hopefully the younger population who I mean, Anna, I think you're kind of an exception right now, but a lot of others get lost amongst that. So, yeah.
That's awesome.
For sure.
That's my ramble done. You're up,
Ash. Yeah, I think as well. Oh, so two things. The longer I'm like quiet, the more nervous I get. I don't know if anyone is feeling that as well. The longer I'm sitting here, the more I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna speak soon. Yeah. But then the other thing about like, you know, what you say about your clients, I think one of the things that I noticed, I guess, because I moved into fitness full time just a couple years ago. And one of the things that I noticed about managing my Instagram from like a personal account into something more of like a business account was the pressure that I felt to be like positive and like happy and motivating and like, oh, you got this all the time, here's my information, yeah, ping me, woo woo woo. Because I feel like that's exhausting, and I feel like in the time where I see my clients, obviously it's like what, you know, you have an energy exchange with them, and that's different. But yeah, I feel like there was such a huge pressure for me to feel, but I don't know, just I guess aligned with yourself as well as with what you want to put out there. It was hard. I don't know whether it's to do with my body image, but I feel like mentally as well, just putting out just your image out there. You're like sometimes I'll have a post scheduled, which is, you know, all about all the things that you need to do for a happy day or something like this. And I won't be having a great day at all. And I'll go and read my post that's scheduled. And I'm like, you know, am I aligned? Am I putting the right things out there?
I think tagging on to that, I think that when social media is such a powerful platform, but as a business, you seem to think that suddenly once you're on Instagram, you've become a marketer, you've become a content creator, you've become an expert in your field. Like you have suddenly taken on so many different roles when that's not what we do, you know, like we're actually there to teach. And I think that's what sometimes gets lost. And when people see these things like save this workout for later, you don't know what they studied. You don't know if they're even qualified to tell you that stuff. And yet they still come back out and say like, I saw this person, I follow so-and-so. And there are so many great people who are actually out there really delivering a great message as well with wonderful, like science-based information as well. But then you also get the flip side of those who can market it the right way. And then they have 10 times the amount of followers, whatever it is. But it's kind of the same of the body image respect. It's like suddenly people are defined by how many people follow them and how they look and how their appearance is. And yet you forget about the authenticity behind it. So I think when you were saying just there about the scheduled posts, I still don't think I know how to use Instagram properly. I know how to use IG Live and I know how to save posts. But outside of that, I think you go down this rabbit hole and it's so hard to try and climb out of it because you're like in a well and you've got nothing to hold on to. And then once you get kind of lost behind it or you don't know how to do it properly, you get left behind. But when we can let go of what other people think, I think that's ultimately where we can try and confidence again, right? It's like hammering away at you and everyone's journey is so individual. And what we can do for ourselves is really just do these small little things like this and share our voice to be able to hopefully resonate with people out there who are listening. Yeah.
Well, I think that's awesome.
Yeah, those are such great perspectives. And thank you so much for sharing, Steph and Ash. Yeah, and I just wanted to move along to ask Angel a question. And just going back to representing your country at the Olympics. And I just wonder how the act of performing on an international stage with regards to, you know, the nature of the sport, the pressure of being in such a high pressure sport, and also the expectations of looking a certain way on live TV. I just wonder how those two pressures might have come together to affect the way that you felt about yourself and your body. So, yeah.
Right. I think I discussed a little bit about, you know, how gymnastics puts you in a little box. You know, you have to look a certain way. You know, what is considered aesthetics for the sport. We try to fit ourselves into that mold. For me, it's a little bit different because I feel like when I, you know, earned my berth to the Olympics, I was a bit older and I felt I was more physically and mentally prepared for the pressures that would, you know, come with the whole experience. And I felt like, you know, there is a certain pressure every time I compete, because I feel like there was a time where I felt, I didn't really enjoy wearing that leotard because, it's tight and it does show, all the things you want to show and things that you don't want to show either. So, I haven't always been comfortable wearing that, but it is part of the sport. But I felt like, to the point where I was able to make the Olympics, that really, it was proving to myself that, having this body and, being able to do all the things that I do, it shows me that, I appreciate my body, what my body can do. It was like that moment of, a self-acceptance. And, I think the run up towards the Olympics, I was actually very excited to be performing on, the world's biggest sporting stage. And I kind of threw all the insecurities and, the body image pressures out the window. And it was more focusing on what I can do and how I was able, how I would be able to perform to the best of my ability at the games, more so on, how I would look and all that. And I think after the Olympics, because of that whole Olympic journey, it helped me to gain a lot of confidence and self-acceptance, with how I look and how, how I see my body. And I think, it's actually recently I've been involved with doing other work. Besides coaching, I've done some hosting here and there on TV. And, you see, you might be next to a celebrity, or you might be hosting with, someone else who has a very different body type. And it's interesting because at first I would feel insecure about, oh, I'm so small and so short, and like there's this guy next to me who's tall like a model, and Hong Kong celebrities are very, very small, thin, and it made me feel like I felt insecure about being on TV. But at the same time, I look back at my own journey as an athlete, and I see how far I've come. And it's about for me, it's more about what I have achieved over how I look these days, and I feel comfortable and I feel proud of my achievements as an athlete. And I think that's really important because we all want to look good, I guess, but for me it's more living a more purposeful life, and I'm happy to be able, I'm in my 30s now, and I see a lot of gymnasts training elite at this age, and I'm really proud of that. Before I would before I would be thinking of, should I retire? And now I'm actually really I'm happy that I'm able to show people that I can still train, that I'm still competitive, and to show the athletes that I teach that you can have longevity in the sport and continue to improve at whatever age that you can be. You can be a good athlete, and you can have that confidence. And I think gaining that confidence, the body image confidence after the Olympics has really helped me with my performance, because it does show, like, if you have that positivity and the good vibes, and you're in a good mental state, that shows in your performance. And I felt like for me these days, because gymnastics is not only about the skills, it's also about the style of your performance, and there are dance elements in it, and that has really helped me, because that part of the artistic part of gymnastics, it used to be something that I really struggled with, but I feel like because of how I view myself and how I'm more comfortable with my body, that has helped me artistically to perform better as an athlete.
Thank you, Angel. That was a wonderful perspective. Yeah, thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. And Anna, I'm going to come to you. as somebody that is of a different generation to us, I can't imagine how you sort of navigate, or how any of you guys navigate school with sort of everything that we have now with Instagram and things like that. I could barely deal with Bebo or MySpace. I used to feel impression by but we've grown up with. I say I'm sort of lumping the five of us all together here. We've all kind of grown up with an idea of what a woman in sport might look like, right? How do you feel now that the media kind of portrays the ideal athlete now, and in what ways are you influenced by bits of sport in the media, be it Instagram or otherwise?
Well, I honestly think there's so much to talk about, so I apologize in advance. Kind of a tangent. I think that we're doing a lot better, but that there's a long way to go before we portray kind of the ideal athlete and ideal body type in kind of a positive way globally for young girls. But like an example of a company that's doing really well, and this is Gymshark. They really have gone in the right direction, in that they've kind of I don't know what they have loads of athletes now that are from all different backgrounds and countries and sports, and they've raised awareness, I think, for a lot of different issues as well. But I think an example of somewhere where I think people have gone a bit wrong is I don't know if you've heard about the I'm Enough campaign, but it was because of Ireland's women's rugby shirts that were modelled last season.
Yeah. I heard about this.
By models, yeah, and not players, which is absolutely ridiculous. And I can gladly say that Canterbury has now apologised and said they'll do better next time. But I think that social media definitely. Sorry, I'm looking at notes as well. I think we've definitely grown up with like social media, obviously, Instagram, Facebook, everything, as well as magazines still that advertise on how to achieve a certain physique, without really acknowledging the practicality of having like stronger abdominal muscles, for example. And I think that really kind of sends a message to young girls that our bodies are something to be looked at for like aesthetic purposes rather than celebrated. And so for me, like, I think at school, for example, or family, when people are like, oh, you look really strong, or like your quads look big or something, I often like take it weirdly, like personally. I'm like, that's a bit like, I'm not sure how I like people talking about my body and stuff, but it's weird because around like the rugby community, when people are like, oh, you're huge, like, sorry, I'm gonna throw these words or like you're massive and stuff, we like bounce off each other and we're like, yeah, that's so great, like because we kind of connect that instantly with like being powerful and like being like a performance athlete. But I think similar to you guys, I've been coaching for a couple of years now. I coach like babies to like 15-year-olds, and recently my friend and I set up a little business, Adam's Academy, and I think, as Steph was saying earlier, that like social media can either be used as like a tool or something that can really negatively impact people. I think she bigged me up a little bit because I've definitely like suffered a lot like mentally, because of like thinking, oh, I'm too strong and muscular, like which guy's gonna like me, type of thing. But I'm definitely trying to like inspire young girls because like I had role models growing up in Hong Kong, the likes of Natasha Olsen-Thorne, who like were just so strong, and I was like, one day I want to be like that. And I'm so blessed to like play alongside some of these girls now. So just like doing my part in kind of inspiring these girls, at the beginning, we only set this up like about less than a month ago. We've had some comments that are like, oh, like, why are you doing this? Like, you're doing it for the money, type of thing. But I think it's really important. Like at the beginning, I was writing lengthy things about like disability awareness and just issues that I think need to be more talked about. And I was like, I don't even care if like 2 people read this, because like I'm educating myself in the process, type thing. And another thing, like I think it was mentioned earlier, you can really like follow who you want. So like one thing that I've tried to do recently is unfollow accounts that I think are doing more harm than good, type thing. And I think, yeah, like exercise, kind of to wrap up, like can help anyone from amateur to professional. Like I think a lot of research has highlighted the benefits of doing exercise, and like you can do it for enjoyment, and we can teach kids to love it. And so I think, just to finish up, parents need to think about kind of the next generation, us as like young adults as well, like how we want the next generation of kids to grow up, like, because every minute that we're spending coaching them and teaching them like the right way to kind of love their bodies and get out and exercise is a minute that they're like not spending on their phones, like looking at body ideals and like how others are kind of gonna look at them, kind of thing. So yeah.
Anna, oh my gosh, I know you said you were going to ramble. There wasn't a ramble in sight. I thought that was very, very I think you're amazing. I think you're really remarkable. I think what you're doing is awesome, and the way you view things is awesome. So thank you for that really, really great answer there.
It's truly incredible. Thank you for sharing that, Anna. Okay. And we have about 4 minutes left in our panel. And we're just going to open it up to the audience if they have any questions. And if not, we also have some more questions that we have prepared. But yeah, just looking to see if anyone on YouTube, if you're watching right now, have any questions, you can just plop them in the comments box and we will get to it. Ooh, we do have one. So Lindsay says, it's Lindsay Corley! Woo! Hey! Yeah. Oh, this is a great question. She asks, I'm interested to know, what does health mean to each of you? So would anyone like to take a stab at this question?
I'm not going to be first again. Someone else go.
I feel like it's such a big question.
Yeah.
Health. Oh man. I feel like. Oh man, this is a hard one. I feel like health is sort of like being aligned with your decisions, or being sort of sorry, my door just opened. Now it's closed. Okay. Health. Yeah, being aligned with like your decisions, your actions, knowing that you're doing good by you, not just in the short term, in the long term. And that can be so many things, you know, whether you're like socially healthy, you're got good food, you have enough time for yourself, you give yourself enough compliments. Yeah, health is so many things.
Right, for sure.
Go on, Steph.
Anyone else?
No, call me out.
Go for it.
All right. Health for me is finding balance in my life, and I mean the obvious one is connecting the physical, the mental, and the emotional sides. And ultimately, that's just learning how to be happy, whatever that means to you. And yeah, making sure it's balanced, because it's like a spider web, and it can go in all sorts of different directions when it gets pulled, when you're doing too much of one thing. But more recently for me, in order to find that health, it's learning how to be present and be in the moment and not get too ahead of myself, but also not dwell in any past occasions or, you know, words that I might have heard in the past or anything that made me feel a certain way. So yeah, taking control, and yeah, I mean, putting it into action is just exercising regularly, It doesn't have to be structured exercise, just moving, making sure I'm reading more so I'm continually learning so that my brain still stays healthy, but also, like you said, being positive, saying nice things, but also remembering to embrace the negatives as well, because without darkness, there is no light. So, yeah.
There's really all these sayings tonight.
All the great quotes. All the great quotes.
You said you like cheese.
I feel like they've said everything. But I do agree with everything they said as well. Yeah, I think it's just, it's a lot about balancing mind, body, and soul, right? I think health, a lot of people just think about the physical aspects of, health and being healthy, but, it is all those things, as they mentioned. And, it's different for everyone, but I think it's just, health is managing all those and being able to do what you want to do, or what your everyday life involves, being able to do that and be happy and living the life, being in the moment. And I think that's important as well. And something that it's like a lifestyle, right? It has to be, you have to be able to be consistent about it, and to have it's a long-term thing. It's not just today and tomorrow. It's looking ahead into the future and being able to maintain the lifestyle that you want to maintain.
For sure. Thanks, Angel. And Anna, do you want to wrap us up with your words?
I think I just did the most Gen Z thing ever, and I searched up on Google. But yeah, state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being, which is basically the GCSE PE definition right there. But I think something that you guys have talked about a lot is balance, but I'd almost argue that total balance is impossible, because
it's hard.
Especially as an IB student, I think anyone and everyone would argue that it's impossible. But I think it's important that we teach our girls and stuff that and boys obviously that to be brave and courageous in everything they do, because that's kind of the only way you're gonna grow. I know CIS we were taught the growth mindset, kind of always thinking outside the box, always trying to push your boundaries, and kind of giving that opportunity to everyone to really see what their limits are in all three areas.
I just want to say that it's
honestly, get her attention.
It's really cool as well that because you're quite young. I feel like you're the youngest out of all of us. It's cool that because I know that the people I looked up to when I was young were basically my age now, almost 30, and I remember comparing my 13-year-old body with a 25-year-old woman and being like, why don't I look like this? and then hitting 25, 26, 27, just sort of being like, your body just changes, and whether you're in a sport or you have you train it to be a certain way, or what, I just think it's cool that you are doing what you're doing.
Thanks very much.
And just as a final wrap up, I want to show the comments, the really kind and cute comments that are in the section right now. So Nat says, Ashley, thank you for touching on toxic positivity on social media. Positivity can sometimes feel forced and fake, even from the audience's perspective. And then Pam says, I've really enjoyed this candid conversation between you all. Your honesty and openness in sharing your experiences is much appreciated. You are wonderful role models to other girls and women. And Philippa says, you're also great. Thanks for sharing. So I think that really wraps up and makes this just so great.
You're you guys, that's so sweet.
This was lovely, everyone. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you for organizing this and for everything. Yeah. One day we will all meet.
Yes, and hopefully when the pandemic has blown over, we can all gather in a real physical space and have another panel. That's something we can hope and look forward to.
Mm-hmm.
Play some rugby.
Yeah.
No idea how to play rugby.
Shotgun on Anna's team.
Everyone clusters over to Anna's team. Alrighty, everyone.
Thanks
so
a little.
Have a great evening.
You too.
You too.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.